Hello and welcome to another JC Live. I'm your host, Dwayne Dunleavy, and we have been having such an amazing beginning of the year. So many interesting things going on. Today, I have a guest who is going to be joining me soon. His name is Doug Shimell, and he is an Emmy-winning journalist, actor, producer. He's got Netflix specials, all types of interesting things that we're going to talk about. How he got into the business, some of the changes he's seen throughout the years, and some other interesting things. So, first, I wanted to let you guys know that since it's the beginning of the year. We've been trying to come up with new and interesting things to do, stuff that might be fun to watch. So my next live, which is on, I believe, the 16th, we are going to be doing. I'm going to actually be creating a hand painted jacket, a blazer from a black velvet blazer that I have. So that's going to be fun and interesting. I have a cool design picked out and everything. So tune in for that. Um, I am just waiting for Doug to get in, and up until then, I wanted to talk about the fact that some people getting into the business right now might not realize how easy they have it. People don't really understand that just even 5 years ago, but 5, 10, 20 years ago, there were a whole lot of hoops to jump through to get into the entertainment business, whether it's acting, modeling, what have you. Nowadays, you can literally do everything you need to do from your home, so there's really no excuse to not have all of the stuff ready that you need to have ready in order to move forward. So I just wanted to mention that and let you guys know that the things that we have available to us now. I mean, there's really no excuse. So anyway, my guest today is Doug Shimell. Like I said, he is an Emmy Award-winning journalist, an actor, a producer. Let's bring him on and see if we can get this worked here. There we go. Hello, Doug. How are you? Can you hear me?
And I know you're there. I cannot. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay. Let's see. Check, check, check. Microphone on. Can you hear me now?
Sorry for the
Maybe is your
tardiness. There,
volume
I
up?
clicked in on the second Zoom link you had sent.
Oh, there we go. So you can hear me now? Oh, can you hear me? Maybe turn up your volume.
That's unmuted there.
Check, check,
So
check.
uh,
Check, check, check. Must be your volume.
everything's
Is your
indicating green
volume?
and low on this end, Wayne.
It must be the
Yeah,
volume.
volume's up. I did all the audio video checks
Uh,
beforehand. So
hmm.
yeah, I'm looking over
I
here
don't
on
know why.
my test. In the
Check.
show
I hear
thing,
you.
and it's
I hear
full.
you.
So I know you're hearing me. I just don't hear you.
Yeah. Check,
And I see
check,
if
check. Let me see.
there's any mute or anything
Check one, check
like
two.
that.
Check one, check two.
And
Check
this is sort
one,
of
check
well above my
two.
pay grade, Dwayne. So
um. Okay. Let's see. Audio.
I can always guess what you're
Output.
saying.
Um. Okay.
And it seems like there's a pretty good lag on here. Just need to restream.
No.
So I know
Usually it's
digital. I hate it
fine.
when television went from analog to digital. The lag just creates all sorts of awkwardness.
Yeah.
So
Let's try this.
yeah,
Maybe.
I wish I could hear you there.
Um. Let me see. Hmm. Maybe. Uh.
But you do have a level on me, and I see a good level. See a good level going out.
Yeah. Check. 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 I do too. Yeah.
I got
Um.
that. We'll check my
Let's
settings
see.
here, see if there's something in there that audio, default microphone. That's where I'm supposed to be, and it's showing a level on there.
Yeah, I hear you, but you don't hear me.
Virtual backgrounds, but that's about the only options it gives me for incoming audio.
let's see. How about can you see that?
Yeah, that'll work. It's sort of like the old days, I guess, Dwayne. If you want to type them
Yeah.
out, I'll answer them. It's going to be sort of
I can't figure out
like
why you
doing it using a
can't hear me.
telegraph. So
Yeah.
yeah, that works.
Okay.
Live video, like Walter Cronkite used to say, he he had been with United Press International during World War II, and I guess when radio came along, he said that was okay. Had so many human beings in the connection, and then all of a sudden television early came along, and he said it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the human compilation. You know, you had some of the other folks, in the way between you and the audience. But how did
Yeah.
I get started in the business? That's an interesting question. My parents used to contend that I always knew what I wanted to do since I was, 5 or 6 or 7. The earliest thing I remember is I loved watching television news. I love watching Yes Evening News with Walter Cronkite, so I'm dating myself there. And I loved to watch. I grew up in the Fairfield County in Connecticut, so the only television stations that we could get were out of New York. We could barely receive New Haven and Hartford, and
Mm.
so I grew up watching some legends in that market, like Jim Jensen and Chuck Scarborough and Rollins Smith. Trying to think of it, even Geraldo Rivera to such infamy.
Yeah.
And so I remember, after coming in and playing or, sports or whatever I was doing in grade school, plopping down television. And I think at that point there was only a 60 News on the East Coast. And, we'd have dinner. My father was in advertising in Manhattan, so our dinner kind of hooked on whenever his train. And sometimes we'd eat at 7, sometimes we'd eat at 9. Or we'd have to wrestle the dog, Kibble, or maybe some tasty soul food. And so we would, and I would plop down in front of the television and watch, like a half an hour local news and then a half an hour of Walter Cronkite. And it just sort of stuck with me. And it was one of those that it was like the first thing that out of television beyond like cartoons and football.
Yeah.
And Sunday nights and The Wonderful World of Disney. For those old enough to remember what that was, it was, I think an half hour show. I can't remember. It just kind of hung with me, and I can remember. It's interesting. And I don't act later, and news was first. A lot of that came together on parallel tracks. So I started doing like plays in grade school, and it carried over to middle school and high school. That's Scout back there, by the way. Oh, good. There we go. Nice, nice butt shot. Very nice, Scout. Thank you. Thank you so much. Normally, he's facing the other way and doing cute things, but that was a good indoctrination there. So,
Yeah.
But I was kind of doing parallel track things. I loved creative writing. I loved, doing the little playlets that we'd do in grade school or middle school. And it wasn't, it's maybe like late middle school, early high school, that's a lot of kind of came together. And in school, they had a really primitive television studio. And I really didn't have to kind of do that. But not a lot of my friends, but a couple of my friends would do that. The president of the class did it, and some other guys did it, some other girls. What would get me a date with some cute girls? But here again, I was just paralyzed with fear and just sort of didn't really act on it, but love the creative writing aspect. My parents, probably in late grade school, early middle school, gave me a portable tape recorder. It's a Commodore reel-to-reel that was probably about that big.
Oh yeah.
And it had two small little reels of recording tape on it. I remember going up to my great aunt's lake cottage, like northwest Jersey, up in God, what was but it was the closest town, Richville. But was Lake Owasso, East Shore. And
Mhm.
so I would go for like 2 or 3 weeks during the summer with my sister. We would watch, we'd watch the news in the evening. Well, it was the summer that the Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. So I
Ah,
sat there like a little nerd with my microphone in front of the speaker on the little, probably, I don't know, 18-inch black and white TV, recording audio of his, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
this is
And
like
the tape lasted
1960.
just long enough to get the last. The response from Houston was, Roger, tranquility, we copy on the ground. You got a bunch of guys to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Tape ends, tape reel. And I'm like, sweet, fancy Jesus. My timing is really, really, really good. And acting
Yeah.
kind of came in fits and uh, um, being clarinetist in the middle school orchestra and then carrying it over to high school. Being in the school orchestra band and acting were not cool. And so like I was kind of in that hell and nether world between a track and football crowd and kind of the acting crowd. And so I would bring some of my football guys to like, one of the orchestra band parties or one of the theater parties. And they're like, oh, what are you doing with those jocks? They don't come to our stuff normally. And then I would bring some of the theater folks to, like the football or track party, and like, yo, what are you doing? Why you hang around with them? And they're like, yeah. And it's something I kind of encourage with my kids as well. And my daughter's very creatively athletically inclined. My son, he will come to my shows just to humor me. Because he lives on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. As soon as he got up there, it's almost 2 years now, I would go, oh, dude, this is excellent. This is so cool. Take Amtrak up. We'll go have lunch. We'll see a show Friday night, and then we'll go see a matinee or show Saturday night, and then we'll go see a matinee on Sunday, and I'll take the train back Sunday night. And there was like this long pause on the phone. He goes, Dad, if I see a show, I will. I'm like, damn it. Yeah, God, man. It was just kind of parallel tracks. It came together in college because I guess that's when it's supposed to come together. And
Yeah.
this is another good question. People don't realize that journalism requires you to write your own stories, etc. So acting many, that's an excellent point. And then of course I'm kind of a pure television news. Whereas, a lot of the reporters in the field, they wrote their own stuff. The anchors, most of the anchors you see, the readers are the ones that are sort of hanging on the next word, and then the next line comes. The intonation, the inflection, and the stare of it all just sort of gives it away. I won't name names, and the stories are sort of legendary in the business, but anchors who are reading, the prompter, and they're talking about Congress just approved a new dollars bill that will fund infrastructure, the Northeast. It wasn't go, it was 6-0. And or we had another reporter I worked with who shall remain unnamed, but had been covering a trial where the jury found the guilty in absentia, meaning that they had all the evidence, they just couldn't find he or she. And so when the reporter did their stand-up close, the little recorded thing at the end went through, and they the sentencing hearing will be in 3 months. I'm reporting live in absentia. I'm Jane Doe. And we all just went, holy boop, I can't believe that boop said that. Oh my God. And it's just we wrote our own stuff. Most of the anchors don't. Some do, kind of came up in the ranks of the field. But some are just perfectly happy to read what's in front of them. I did watch Ron Burgundy. To see the dire consequences of it. That's another good question. a lot of what we had to cover was not great. A lot of what we had to cover was, some in punishment and depravity and whatnot. It's some of the reasons that a lot of folks have gone away in droves from television news. A lot of it was cable, and then other video distractions with streaming online and blah blah blah, and then just generations getting out of the habit of watching television news or getting their news there because they've got dating apps on their phones, and so a lot of it is not the greatest stuff. Aside from the murders and the explosions, and it's not to diminish the loss of life. But none of that really bothered me. The mother who got tired of her toddler climbing out of his crib and then coming downstairs and maybe, interrupting she and a male friend or something like that, gets arrested because her solution to keeping the child in its crib and pulling off its diaper, tape the diaper to the little boy, then duct tape the little boy's hands and legs to the, and that stuff
Oh my
didn't
God.
bother me until I had kids.
Yeah.
And then when I had kids, that sort of veneer, that exoskeleton, that armor that you build up, gone in an instant. And suddenly I thought I wasn't empathetic before, stories, because I cannot believe I've met some of those wonderful people under the worst of circumstances, and they are my friends to this day.
Really?
Whether on social media or whether I still keep in touch with them. I'm not sure that if I were in their dire circumstances and I walked up to me and said, I was wondering if I know this is a horrible time for you, would you be willing to sort of share some of your feelings? I'm not sure I wouldn't punch him in the head, punch me in the head. So, being sort of that disaffected, detached type thing, have a family, have kids, and suddenly more in their shoes than were before. Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the empathy is the thing that helped people feel like they could trust me. And that was my stock and trade. If somebody told me something in confidence off the record, what it was, it stayed off the record. And you'll see a lot of that debate and forth. A lot of print folks don't necessarily adhere to that. Unless you get some sort of arrangement for off the record, you will find sometimes that what you thought was off because you asked if it could be off the record was not, and ends up in print. But and doing the live shots, the news, as you say, very important to the community. I think it is, and never has local news been more in peril than it in the last 5 or 6 years. Probably the trend was there going back a couple, 2.5, 3 decades in print, and we've seen the decline of major market newspapers with consolidations of maybe a morning paper, afternoon paper. Philadelphia Inquirer is a good example here in Philadelphia. Pulitzer Prize winning publication has gone through bankruptcies, several ownership changes. It's now basically a non-profit entity funded by kind of a Lenfest Foundation, very wealthy benefactor, believed in free press. So it really can sustain itself. But I think that media on the local level, we've seen consolidations. We've seen venture capital groups come in and buy up ownerships that had small weeklies and daily area, and fire a bunch of staff and turn them into ad rags for their constituents, their special interests. You mentioned, and I think this is a good point, for some of these emotional stories, it's tough, but it's just that there's sort of that built-in reflexive detachment, and I think you can convey certain things without overacting, and to a certain extent, the demeanor in television news is a form of like intonation acting. I see some really bad acting out there, and people are trying to affect certain looks and feels and intonations and cadences, and you sit back and go, "Oh, if I were a reviewer, the show would be closing in a week," that sort of thing. But inside acting, live theater, that was something I had always done on the side with NBC when they were owned by General Electric, and certain shows would come around in and around the Philly area, who was, I think, an old song and dance man himself. And so consequently, I would, I'd go to him and I'd say, hey, Chris, I'm going to be in this show with Ray at, Players Club of Swarthmore or whatever it was. And it's just a Friday, Saturday, Sunday gig. I'm going to rehearse for 2 weeks with the accompanist in the mornings. And then I'm going to need probably like a week where I can flip myself on the late show, the 11 p.m. show. Can I flip so I can do stuff with the cast? And cabarets, as you know, are pretty straightforward. And I'm a character singer. I'm not a ballier. I'm not a theater belter. I'm the guy that they won't cut me because I really sell it. They feel it was like sports too. It's like he didn't possess the natural skills, but boy, he really, really tried hard. And so, and that live acting thing does help on camera in terms of just kind of flattening it out. Not trying to become overly emotional, and you can tell they're just not pulling it off. A lot of that has to do with the youth in the business. It's sort of infiltrated the networks and major market newscasts, unfortunately. And real life experience, absolutely informing the acting. Not that you would sit there kind of mimic,
Right.
The grieving family or the convicted defendant, have you, but it somewhere it all just is taken. I'll give a good example of motivation. Not everybody has to conjure up things, but I was doing a wonderful international spot for Activia. There was no product placement. I was the husband of Ferry, who was famous for sailing around the world by herself, and she was getting ready to go on another voyage. And so this was sort of the preamble to it, and they had already shot all of the at-sea stuff with some CG, but very, very well done. I wish I could remember who the director is. And my scene, I'm the husband, and she is on the floor of her bathroom. We shot in this beautiful brownstone up in Harlem. This wonderful couple let us shoot up there. Hot is, and they were running 3 or 4 floors, and we're shooting on all. And you just got, thankfully the LED lights are a lot cooler, but obviously when they had to shoot, they had to kill all the windows. So it got hot as blazes, and these poor wardrobe girls, I've got like giant pit stains on like 5 or 6 outfits. And this one scene, she's on the floor of the bathroom texting her mom, I don't think I can go through with this. I come through the sliding door, and it's all shot POV from this the sort of body double. I wish I remember her name, but this poor gal, her head was kinked to the left or right because they got the red cameras. And the director, who's just off camera with his wireless monitor, says, I'm really going to need to go to a very dark place on this. He says, there's going to be a little bit of audio, a little bit of wild sound. And so I sit there and do several takes, and we enter the cut. And he leans, are you okay? And I'm like, you told me you needed me to go to a dark place. And I just had to put my dog down, my black lab down weeks ago. And you could hear the crew in the next room going, oh no, we are so sorry. We are so sorry to make you go there. But just those little moments, whether it's, you remember a family sort of gracefully fielded, or politely demurred and said, I shouldn't. What is my astrological sign? Now, Leo, that's not a bad guess. I am solidly Aries, which is a goddamn blessing. And it's wonderful professionally. It is brutal in interpersonal stuff and relationships and that sort of thing. But it also just, you are just kind of driven, and you don't suffer fools gladly. You don't suffer them at all. And you think you're the purist, and you're the keeper of the truth and light, and everybody else, get the the boop out of the way. kind of thing. So you're SAG as well? Yeah,
Yeah.
um, it's I'll tell you. Is that the fire sign? Is that really? Which is
Mhm.
the fire sign? Is Leo? Oh my God, I
Leo,
didn't realize that. I thought that was the lion. Dope. I usually rely on the girls I go out with to sort of go, oh my God, you are such Aries, or you're such a whatever. It's like, I get it. Okay. Fire signs. Oh, Sagittarius. I'm sitting there, it's like, you're a Screen Actors Guild sign? Oh my word. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Leo's the lion. You're the horse. Yeah. God, it's a killer. It's a killer. And I've tried to go out with other Aries women, and it's
Yeah.
brutal. Could
Usually
have ended a murder suicide if we'd gotten past the 4th month. You never
a
know.
lot
That's terrible.
avenues.
But it's I think a lot of that stuff. Oh God, yeah. Well, it's sort of you're right about Aries having a lot of different avenues. You're sort of the master. You're a jack of all and master of none. And but yet in the little Aries range, you think that you really are the best in those fields. And it goes back to the whole, you sell it really, really well, Doug. And okay, we'll let him sing that song. We'll make half of it talky, and we'll make them sing. And usually he can pull that off. I hope. But
Yeah.
oh God. Well, I'll tell you what. Do something. Sort of the thing is fun and it's very obvious. And when I was doing it when GE on NBC, it was wonderful. Comcast came in. They sort of said, we're cutting off all the outside projects because we don't want to diminish artistic brand. And I'm thinking to myself, now that I'm safely retired, I'm like, how could any of you corporate owners push your brand any further? Me, doing some performances, some off Broadway, that's not going to hurt anything. But I had some documentaries in midstream, and so they cut the outside projects. One of the many reasons I decided to retire. But producing is very interesting. I got into that earlier than I thought I would, and it was only because I have a wonderful film partner in Tommy Avalone, who is Representative Morris. He and I have done some wonderful projects together. I Am Santa Claus, where we follow 5 nat-bearded Santa Clauses around the country. Wonderful, wonderful piece. I think that just got picked up again because he's got a check for me. It's supposed to be arriving any day. That's what he says. But Ghost Heads, which sort of looks at extreme fandom. In this particular case, it's the Ghost Heads movie franchise, and it was released in conjunction with the All Girls reboot, which would have been 2016, 2017. I can't remember. So get in on those at varying levels. Whatever Tommy was comfortable with me getting in on, reviewing scripts, maybe making suggestions for where to go for interviews, because there's a lot of journalist carryover in those. And then you also have a piece of the action, monetarily. And so that was kind of the weird thing for me. I'd never really done that before. But it's funny when the quarterly checks come around and on those projects, it was wonderful. Exactly. That's something that you're talking about, just making certain that, documentaries or news coverage look like the rest of the country. That was something I kind of did on my own, going back many, many years in television news. If you're doing a story that predominantly affects people of color or people of color in a different part of the city, you don't go to the restaurant district and interview a bunch of white folks.
Right.
And we had people that I worked with who would come back with a story about maybe the state, maybe where I was working or wherever the story was, or the federal government having to cut the women, infants, and children, or nutrition programs, and that affects those are lifelines for people of color. And we had one anchor who came back, and normally they shouldn't let them go out in the field unless they've had some journalistic training, and came back with a bunch of interviews with white people. And I think they made her go back out in the field and say, I'm sorry, did we not explain this to you clearly? Maybe there was something got lost in the translation.
Yeah.
And I just always looked at anytime, you want to zero in on who are the affected communities, and does it ripple out from there, and making certain that your little unscientific sample, whether it's for a news story or for a documentary, has to be balanced. It's not like you're forcing the balance in there. It just kind of, it just naturally flows from whatever the issue of the story is, whatever you're looking at. Okay, and I missed this question too. You said you're a Santa at Peddler's Village. You're the singing Santa.
Yeah.
Are you? So
Yeah.
is that beard? You've just cut it off since the holidays. You grow that out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have a big one. Yeah.
Really? Oh my God, that
Yeah.
thing gets, yikes. I wish I have like 8 little whisker follicles. Just to let you know, I did shower shave for this interview, so my face is on fire. But no, I digress. But I guess you're talking about the details behind the scenes, whether it's a documentary, where it is for television. Sometimes that's can be more fun than the story you might be covering, the issue you might portray. And I remember a few years back, consultants have always been, unfortunately, an influence on television news and many other movies and theater as well. Dramaturgs coming in and blowing up things and starting over. They think something didn't test well. But sometimes that process, I think, can be fascinating. The sausage making can be as fascinating and as delicious as the sausage itself.
Yeah.
And some consultants are like, "Ooh, we want you to your story, show some of the behind the scenes, pull back the curtain." And I'm like, okay, it's one thing to do it organically. It's another thing for a bunch of people who would not know how to do it organically to then create these contrived scenes in their stories, which only run a minute 30, minute 45, maybe 2 minutes. And you're jamming in there how the reporter dutifully walks up and rings the intercom, and we're here to demand answers from you. We're going to ask some tough questions of you. And that's somehow pulling back the curtain. I'm like, you know what? If it doesn't waste time in my story, if it doesn't waste time in a documentary, I think it's wonderful. Now, one of the projects that I was a part of with Tommy Avalone is Bill Murray stories, life lessons learned from a mythical man, about all the times that Bill Murray shows up in people's lives just randomly. Frat party, he's in the kitchen washing glasses because they've run out of red cups. That sort of thing. And Tommy put in his piece trying to get a hold of Bill Murray to get a comment. Why do you do this? Why do you just pop up at wedding photos, at a kickball game, in all the bizarre things that he has done? And Tommy thought it'd be kind of cool to show the efforts that he went to get in touch with Bill Murray. He had a phone number to Bill Murray answering machine, which for years has been the only way that he would get projects at Murray.
Yeah. And
so it just shows Tommy kind of like full starting on a couple of them. They had outtakes. Say, hey, Bill, it's Tommy Avalone. I really wanted to do a documentary about no. And it would just be all those kind of cute outtakes, and he would sprinkle them through the piece. And they weren't contrived. They were, it was as many times he screwed up. And then I think he couldn't get it right, or he wasn't getting a response. So he had his mom leave a message. And it was really, I'm remembering correctly. And when Tommy sees it, he's going, dude, have you just forgotten everything that has occurred up until that podcast? And they were just kind of neat little things where you can kind of detail some of that behind the scenes stuff, and it actually lends to it. But now you've got that whole culture where cues, I can't remember what's running out cues under the credits at the end, and now you're kind of there's a whole genre of folks who are force feeding these spontaneous outtakes and vignettes. It kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. But and I hope I'm answering some of these questions correctly. It's kind of weird. Yeah. I love it. You can figure out why it's there. Because I'm like a technical assistant. And you saw the dog displaying her here. Oh God. I think the question. I hate the like grimy part of the process. I think I sort of stick out. I'm not as much at it as a lot of stories are, and I really had to learn, years ago how to audition, what's proper. Just theater courses in college, but they were really so mental, rudimentary. Whether it's a commercial or something, an commercial or whatever it was, show became a masterclass because you're just,
All right, I think we might have lost Doug. It was going good. It was connected
I
pretty
would tell my
well.
bosses over the years, I got fine. But then I think it was easy to auditions. You no longer had to do it on high camera or better on these things. And a lot of stuff was shut down. A lot of affiliate area. To the FM. Folks, once they then it was everything. I've been on. Emails to call, emails to come in, and the texts to ring, and then it was kind of gets real that way, and
So I put a message for Doug on there. I know
I cut the cable about 2 years ago and got T-Mobile for everything. And now T-Mobile family's going into good to go. All right. Well, listen, thank you. And if you want to do a redo, maybe we can figure out the audio.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was so good. Thank you. All right.
Keep getting the weights.
All right. Thanks so much, and thank you guys for watching.
Going. Oh, that's now. Looks like back.
All right.
Yeah. T-Mobile is finding. Unfortunately.